sorry.
Well, thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you, guests, parents, and public and board members, Principal Chung and Interim Executive Director Dr. Watson as well. I'm Doug Hewson, and I welcome everybody to the April 19th, 2022 Irvine International Academy regularly scheduled board meeting. I will begin tonight with our call to order and roll call to call the meeting to order. And so please affirm your presence here, each of you by name. Miller Zhang.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Dr. Jolene Smith.
Yes, sir.
And Ethan Kay.
Present.
Brett Freeman. Present. Doug Hewson is present as well. And Glenn, here you are.
Present.
Well, thank you, everybody. We're fortunate to have guest parents and public present, and we long to hear from each of you. We have a microphone in the front for each of you to come and to share your comments with the board. 3 minutes is what we generally allocate. And when we get near the end, Mary Beth will indicate that we're getting close. And if you need to finish your sentence, we have obviously that grace. We'll allocate about 30 minutes for the total comments. And so, Mary Beth, if you would lead that, we'll take notes as a board as people share.
So right now we have 6 people. So but it's 3 minutes each. The first person is Kong Chu.
Hello. First, I would like to express my appreciation to the board for their time and dedication in helping IIA navigate through extremely difficult situations this year. In my first board meeting comment at the start of the school year, I said I could not imagine my son being in any other school. I still think so, but with serious concerns. While I do not disagree that the previous superintendent has some missteps, I believe the principal should be held more accountable for all this year's drama, chaos, and setbacks. The focus of the conversations has been derailed so much that the community has forgotten long ago about what the school should really be talking about, like how to teach Singapore math effectively in larger classroom settings, or how to make sure students are not behind in English with only 50% of the exposure. But instead, the personal attacks are still going on recently that they have even spilled over to some of the board members. Like I mentioned in the last board meeting, the principal approached me in early February and talked about adding 8 parents to the board and turning more parents against the previous superintendent. Coupled with all his non-actions on real critical matters, I have to come to 2 conclusions. Number 1, the principal seems to spend a lot of his time trying to rule the school instead of focusing on his actual job duties, which he has obviously underperforming on various fronts. Number 2, being supposedly the Chinese-speaking leader at the school, it is of the utmost importance that the principal exercise his role to bridge the East and the West and promote unity. However, the principal has been doing the opposite by creating divisiveness along cultural lines and encouraging hatred in the IIA community during its infancy. The cut is so deep that it's likely to take a long time to heal. If this kind of misconduct gets away with no consequences, he could pull these tricks all over again when he has conflict with someone else in the future. Even worse, this type of underhand dealings could be deemed acceptable in IIA, where stepping your opponent is an option. At that point, IIA's environment will be so hostile and toxic for everyone involved. I'm sure no one wants to see that. I give principal a lot of credit establishing the school from the ground up, and I used to have a lot of faith, but now the faith is long gone. I used to want to offer all my help, but I cannot help someone at the cost of damaging the school. As much as I hate to say this, IIA's current principal role needs to be re-evaluated. Seriously, thank you.
Monday.
Politically challenged. Good evening, board members. I'm a mom of 2 kids currently enrolled in the school, who wants to ensure IIA is providing a positive, well-rounded, nurturing learning environment. Besides academic competitiveness, we want to produce students with self-confidence, integrity, characters, and who can make right choices when they face any real-life challenges in the future. I'm not a fan or loyalist or Principal Chuang, Michael Scott, or any administrator or staff at IIA. So some people ask me, why are you sticking out? Aren't you afraid that your kids will be retaliated against? I say no, because I don't want to go down in history knowing that I didn't do anything to fix it. If I don't stand up and fight for what I believe is right for my kids and myself, then who will? I believe being silent means approving these school official actions. So what I've observed was Dr. Michael Scott and any potential supervisor of Mr. Chuang, whom he is unable to communicate or control or manipulate, will get removed. After observing the turmoil created by the certain parties and their leader that came behind the scene in the past 7 months, I believe negative actions started with personal attack or hatred of Dr. Michael Scott. They used his previous charter experience that had happened 20 years ago against him. Then things escalated to more attacks using anonymous letter, Mandarin teacher sign letter, singling out Michael Scott. Other actions include creating a heavily biased PTO survey that was approved with Principal Trump presence. Passing out flyers and publishing biased PTO results to current and future prospective parents, holding open protests at school properties without permits, and eventually led to the incident on March 15. More lies and personal attacks were also spreading like poisons to the wells on social media, cyber attacks. I call them cyber bullies. People began bad-mouthing IIA and successfully discouraging some parents from continuing to send their kids to IIA next fall. So IIA had some innocent people have been bullied by these same group of people. They coordinated massive bullying and removed Dr. Michael Scott as Stephen Chuang's supervisor. And I don't want the same group of people repeating the same tactic to achieve their next agenda, whatever that is. The damage that these people have done to IIA and the repetition and all the innocent people is tremendous. What action has school leadership done to reprimand and stop these bullies? If the board or school leaders think that the above mentioned incident are justified or just swept under the rug, and let's start healing process approach, they are either naive, insulting my intelligence, or out of touch with reality. In order to heal this big wound that was caused by this group of people, I asked the board to investigate and take appropriate action and hold these people accountable. These people are bullies. History will repeat itself, and the official don't do anything or learn from it. Thank you.
Next is Todd Odina.
So, I'm a parent of a student at the school. And I recognize, I've been on many of the meetings on Zoom, recognize your hard work. Being a board member is a thankless job. Regardless of that, thank you. And I really like this school. My daughter likes the school as well. She enjoys her teachers and being at this school. The one thing that persuaded my wife and I to enroll our daughter is some of the philosophy and mission of the school, the immersion, the lifelong learning, and then compassionate leadership. But we are obviously concerned by many of the things that we've heard, of course, and listened to on the board meetings. The petition was out to keep Principal Chang. The teacher's letter, of course, the issue with hiring a curriculum director that doesn't speak Mandarin, even the charge of nepotism against Dr. Scott. And so my wife and I have tried to listen to understand these complaints. These are not things we take lightly, but we're concerned because we didn't hear much from Principal Stephen Chang about these issues or to see his solutions. Especially the most concerning thing was the protest on the lawn. Okay, so that's engraved in our minds. And so after listening to all these hours of indictments, even the independent investigation by the board, Dr. Scott's actions didn't seem to warrant a public shaming on the lawn as our children are entering their own school. Another issue is that Principal Chung gave no public condemnation of such a protest of his colleague happening outside of his office. The loudest and most persistent voices in most of the board meetings have been supportive of Principal Chung while simultaneously disparaging of the former executive director, Director Scott. And so one of the questions was, where was Principal Chung seeking to resolve the issues internally and asking parents patience and reasonableness as they seek solutions together? Even after the protest, the lawn protest, Principal Chung finally spoke, only to say that he would officially complain about workplace harassment against himself after Scott is disparaged there on the lawn. So something's not right here. Many feel this. This does not look like compassionate leadership. And so I make a request to the board. I'm asking the board that they would request of Principal Chung to provide a signed public written statement stating that he did not persuade, incite, or coach any parents, teachers, or even others outside of the school to speak out against his former colleague, Executive Director Michael Scott, and so promote his own authority. And so I want to end with this and the idea of this compassionate leadership. Are we teaching our children that leadership is by intimidation, which is what I perceive, or are we going to teach them that integrity matters? Thank you.
Next is on now.
Good evening to the board members. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak, although I do wish I had 45 minutes, just like Doug Freeman did at the last board meeting, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. I have a 6- and 7-year-old attending IIA. I'm one of the 75% that needs to see change in order to continue to stay at IIA. I'm very familiar with joining new Chinese and Mandarin immersion schools. My 12-year-old daughter attended RSI the second year they opened, and we were there for 3 years. And when my second was born, the commute was too far, and we joined Frontiers Academy the very first year they opened, and we stayed there for 5 years. I understand exactly what growing pains are, and I'm very familiar with them. What I see here are not growing pains, but nepotism and corruption. What I have seen Michael Scott and this board foster is unsustainable. I remember in one of the board meetings, Doug Houston had commented on the unbelievable amount of parent participation in these board meetings, 187 parents, I believe, something he had never seen before. And he is involved in several boards. I believe the unbelievable amount of parent participation in these board meetings is due to concern, which is not a good thing. Parents don't want to have to spend their evenings at board meetings when they can be at home eating dinner with their families, helping with homework and spending quality time with their children. In fact, I've never been to any board meeting for any of the schools that my children have attended. As a side note, my 6- and 7-year-old, they attended Fletcher for an entire school year. In fact, I logged onto a board meeting while we were at Disney World in Florida and stayed up until 3 a.m. in the morning to hear from our Mandarin teachers since they were shut out by the board despite the pleas of parents. Why is it that Doug Freeman is given 45 minutes and not allowed to speak poorly of our principal without being reprimanded, and we cannot spare a mere 3 minutes for our Mandarin teachers? I have spoken with several staff members that continue to feel unsafe to speak and not support it. I've also heard Doug Houston ask Victor, the vice president of the PTO, the only voice we have, to step down and resign. Why is it that anybody that doesn't believe in the same thing as Michael Scott and Doug Houston are being asked to leave or run the risk of being fired? I ask you, Doug Houston, to please step down and resign for the sake of our children and for the school. Please remove all board members, Miller, who can't fully commit to our meetings, Freeman, who's clearly related to Doug Freeman, and Smith, who hardly attends any meetings, need to step down. We need more Irvine resident parents on this board, and this needs to be the end of this madness. Perhaps the end goal of this board, Michael Scott, is to bleed IIA all their money to contribute to the pyramid scheme and money laundering activities. There's rumors Michael Scott is being kept high salary in order to boost the amount of his lifetime pension. Why is it that it takes less than a month to hire a director of curriculum, and we need all these several months to hire to put Irvine residents and parents on the board? This is not Riverside. This is, we see what is happening and we know what is happening. If you're truly men of God, do the right thing. I know the school has great potential. We need our teachers to be happy and supported. We need checks and balances. We need to see a new board before the school year ends. It is very apparent and obvious that staff and the family, when they see how the board votes. So please proceed with caution. And why are we paying Nick Driver $150 an hour to not do his job? This is another mismanagement of funds. I also want to point out Kong, An, Todd, and Delgado represent a small portion of the school, less than 30% to be exact. Just look at both surveys. Thank you.
Good evening, board. A few things to highlight in question. On the IIA website, under calendar and board meeting, The document says the April and May board meetings are 4/26 and 5/31. However, the new school board button on the website now says April is today and then May is 5/24. So I was just wondering why these changes were made. Because the monthly meetings have always been the last Tuesdays of the month, so except for the special meetings. So I'm just curious about that. At the March meeting last month, Coach K mentioned his discovery that at the time, Mr. Scott was still set to receive his full executive director salary through June 30th. That's disturbing because at the 3/22/22 meeting, we were all led to believe that Mr. Scott was removed and was moved into the director of development role. However, at the 4/6/22 OCBE meeting, Araceli Chastain reported that Mr. Scott had yet to be officially placed in that role, and that the 3/22/22 meeting simply approved the DOD position, not placing Mr. Scott into that position. So can we please have an update? Because I would assume the DOD salary is less than the 208K that Mr. Scott's prior salary was. So I'm just looking for an update on where we stand on that. Also at the 3/17/22 meeting, Principal Trong alleged that Mr. Scott sent a text message to Doug during a closed session that you guys had saying, quote, "I still feel Stephen needs to go as soon as possible to keep the school together," unquote. This can be heard on the IIA YouTube video dated 3/17/22 at the 55-minute mark. Has this issue been addressed? Because I have concerns about those allegations. Finally, at the last meeting, there was an agenda item regarding OCMD. During the comments for that agenda item, there was a letter being handed out from OCMD. And the comment portion for that agenda item was moved past before the letter could be read by everyone in attendance. So can you please just kind of ensure that any information regarding any agenda items, that they are distributed well in advance, just so, you know, if there's comments that want to be made, they can be made accordingly. So that's all. Thank you.
Petro?
Good evening, board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just want to say hello. Dr. Jolene Smith, hi. I don't know if you recognize me. I went to Azusa Pacific, so I recognize you from there. But I just wanted to say one thing respectfully. If you guys could please respond to my email that I sent out March 2nd at 1:09 p.m. I've mentioned to Mr. Houston that I've sent out this email and I've been looking for a response. I've reached out about 3 times trying to get a response regarding a rather personal work-related matter. And I have yet to hear back from you guys. So if you guys could just please address that at your earliest convenience, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
That's it.
Well, thank you. There'll be opportunity when we begin our agenda to have additional comments on each topic, but thank you for these general comments initially. Board has 3 topics in closed session. One is discussion about some anticipation of litigation. Second is an employee matter. A third is review of a contract. I'm estimating about 40 minutes of conversation in closed session. So I just want to forecast that because I want to be respectful of your time. We're going to move back to room 25 for that. At one point, we'd like to invite in the executive director too, because we'll talk about that contract as well. But we'll start just with board. And Mary Beth, then if we could let you know as we need additional staff as well. Great, thank you, everybody. Well, welcome again, everybody, back to our April 19th meeting. Reporting out of closed session, then 2 items to share. Number one, our executive director brought us a contract modification recommendation, and we ratified that. The job descriptions in the board packet for everybody. Secondly, the board needed to address a letter that we received from a law firm with some potential for litigation. From that, the issue was an alleged bullying incident. And so the board decided unanimously that we needed to conduct a third-party investigation. And so following that, then the process of the investigation, the question was brought up because some of the letter identifies our principal. should we, during the time of the investigation, have our principal on paid administrative leave for that maybe day or 2 days that it takes place? So here is the vote on that part, unanimous on the vote to do the investigation with the third party. For the principal be on paid administrative leave during the investigation, Glenn Rogers is a no. Doug Hewson is a yes. Brett Freeman is a yes. Ethan Kay is a yes. And Miller Joint is a yes as well. And Dr. Smith is a yes. And she won't be continuing the board meeting. She starts the day at 4 a.m. and will again tomorrow. So we'll continue with our quorum of a board meeting. That's the report out of closed session. We get the opportunity to have our Pledge of Allegiance. I'll invite those that would like to participate to stand, face the flag, and cover your heart. And I'll lead out. Oh, we have a bigger one right here. Let's do that. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Next on our agenda is to approve the last meeting's minutes. Board members have had a chance to review. Board members, any correction before I ask for a motion to approve last meeting minutes? I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
I had it, sorry. Yeah, I did want to say, I did have a correction. I think Mary Beth, I think you did update it.
What was the, do you remember what the correction was? Was it a typographical error or?
It's highlighted in yellow. Basically, it was just a clarification on the process for the website subcommittee.
Okay, and so you corrected the minutes, which we now have and we received. Okay, thank you for that. Then again, a motion was from Glenn. Do I have a second? Looked like Miller got the second. We'll do just a roll call vote on accepting minutes then, Glenn.
Aye.
And Doug Hewson is a yes. Brett?
Aye.
And Ethan?
Aye.
And thank you all. Minutes approved. Update from our executive director. Would you come and share with us, Dr. Watson? Thank you. And then we're going to hear from Principal Chung and maybe some parents as well.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So it's great to have you guys here tonight. Things are going great at the school. We're seeing a lot of good things happening, and we appreciate all of the parent support. I sent out another email over the weekend to present the rebirth of our school, use the spring as the metaphor. And I also wanted to send that letter in support of our employees. I want our employees to know that we as a school care about them and we support them. That includes teachers and staff. So let's see. First thing I want to mention is the GATE program piece again. We're actually weighing the pros and cons, and that's something that eventually I want to get some parent response and feedback on, how they feel about the GATE program, but that's something that we will get into OCDE and see if we need revisions for that for the charter petition. That along goes with the manner and assessments to double confirm if we need material revisions for that. Also, universal complaint policy. This will need to be board approved, so it'll be something that'll probably come up for the next board meeting. But I'm crafting that, and that universal complaint policy will also include less formal complaints. Uniform complaint policies often include more formal complaints. Sorry, forgot. I'm hoping you guys can hear me back there.
Yeah,
But sometimes they'll put together where they'll include less formal complaints as well. So this way, parents will be aware of how to voice their concerns to our staff or administration. Teacher contracts this week and next week, we'll be working on those. I plan, don't quote me on this, but I'm hoping by early May, we should have everything buttoned up with respect to that. So I know a lot of parents out there are concerned. Is my teacher going to be here next year? I love my teacher. I want my teacher. We love your teacher as well. Of course, we love all the teachers. They've been working very hard, and we want them to know that they're appreciated. So we expect that within the next couple of weeks, give or take a day or so there, that we should have that all sewn up from our end. I wanted to mention the director or the human resources specialist is, and I don't know if this is something I think that's on for later, so maybe I'm going to discuss this later, the sort of shifting of roles of our human resources specialist and the great work that she's been doing for our school. Really, the biggest thing that I want to say about her and what she's been doing for the school is she's been getting the school in total compliance on every matter and every issue. Starting a school from scratch in this first year, a lot of difficulties and challenges, and many things that might get overlooked, unintentionally overlooked. And this is what our human resource specialist, soon to be director of human resources and operations, is doing a great job at. And without her, I think that the school would be at a loss. So I think her role is very vital in making the school successful, primarily by making sure the school is really by the book, by the law, by the guidelines, by the regulation. Everything is very much black and white. And I think parents will see that very soon, if not already. So that's great, hopefully to build trust between the school and the community. I sent out a survey about the music, arts, and dance after school, because we want to know how parents feel about the parents who are taking some type of enrichment program after school, not just the Wonder Kids, but also the music, arts, and dance. As I said in the last board meeting, I believe it was the last one, yes, we are reevaluating our relationship with OCMD, and that is still the case. And part of doing that is to hear of what parents want, or the parents who are currently taking some type of after school music, arts, or dance course, do they like to continue that? But we're reevaluating the relationship, so it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to change. This is why we're looking for parent input. And in general, a lot of the parents, one thing that a lot of them, liked having an opportunity to do some type of music, arts, or dance here at the school site. Some of the complaints were lack of curriculum development, and really, I think a large one was the communication between what is my child doing in the music, arts, or dance class from the teacher to the parent. So we're going to take those things into account and really, figure out the next steps with regard to how we're going to, or if we're going to, and if so, how we're going to try and incorporate some type of music, arts, or dance into the after-school program. And then lastly, I just want the public to be aware that along with the teacher contracts, I've also sent out a survey, so to speak. It's kind of more like a questionnaire. No, anyway, I want to know what the teachers feel, what they want. And I think even though Principal Chong and I would speak to them individually, we speak to them as a group, I feel that with this anonymous approach, we can really get to, since we're at this point here, sort of in the home stretch, we can really understand what our teachers want, not just for themselves, but for the school in general, for the curriculum, for the roles that they may have or other individuals who work here may have. So I sent that out just recently, and that's going to give us some great feedback, and that can provide us ways to further support our teachers even better than we already are. So that is my update so far, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. Board members, any comments or affirmations? You get at the end of our agenda the opportunity as well for board recommendations, but any clarification from the executive director report?
I didn't hear anything on the curriculum committee meeting that happened. Frankly, I was really surprised to see a report out of a meeting, considering that I'm on the curriculum committee and wasn't invited, wasn't aware that there was a meeting. I saw there were individuals on there. Only reason I bring it up, Dr. Watson, is because I know that you're part of it. So yeah, you help provide some clarity around how that came to be. And The reason I'm most interested is because there needs to be some oversight as well in what's happening there, especially before it gets reported out to the parents. There needs to be some connection to the board and some assurance that we're in alignment with our charter.
Yes, of course. Well, I think Principal Chuang is going to report more information about curriculum development, but the curriculum committee needs a board member, and I served as that board member when we met. But there has not been a new meeting since that last one. Now, there was one scheduled, but it got rescheduled. So if you are, which actually I told the curriculum committee current members that I was going to speak to the board to find out who was going to replace me. And I'm guessing it's going to be you. So if it's going to be you, then I will make sure and communicate that to the curriculum committee. So when the next time that the rescheduled meeting is, that you, of course, will be there. So there hasn't been any reporting out without a board member present, if that's what you're asserting.
So just to confirm, so some time ago, we had a listing of committees.
Yes.
And if you refer back to that document, you'll see that you were the chair
Yeah.
of that committee.
Yes.
I also was on that committee.
Okay.
As well as Kennedy Rocker, Principal Chuang, and then we were going to have some other parents.
Okay.
So I think because that committee is so critical to the school,
Yes.
that there definitely needs to be some oversight and some
Yes.
alliance with the board, especially before things are reported out. I love that there were notes. I appreciate there were notes.
Yes.
There were actions that were assigned, which is great,
Yes.
but there needs to be more communication on that front, given how important that committee is for the school.
Of course, I'm sorry, as a board member, when I was on the committee, I did not look at who else was on that committee, nor did I sort of, I'm not quite sure how it came together. And looking back on it, I wasn't unaware that there were two board members on that committee.
Okay.
But in the future, we will make sure and not make that mistake again.
Yeah, and helpful in terms of other parents that may or may not have been aware that there were seats open for that committee.
Yeah, I think when the committee was formed, I believe that's when there was a position for anyone who wanted to get on it. And then it was just sort of an open call if you wanted to get on that committee. And people did. I mean, there were 3 parents on the committee, along with myself and the principal. Yes, I will make sure.
Could I recommend just a warm handshake between you two as the new committee board member who's leading that? You guys do a kind of a handoff on how far
Yeah.
you've gotten it?
Yeah. Well,
It doesn't have to be me. I mean, I was just.
You are
I'm on there.
Yeah, no,
So
from
anyone
2
else
board
wants
meetings
to
ago,
go?
you're the guy.
I'm on there.
Yeah,
So
you're
I
now
just
the
never took
committee.
that,
Yeah.
I never took the head role in that. So the committee had, yes, Principal Chuang?
Can I interrupt? I apologize. We are not fully aware of you.
Yeah,
upon
I'm sorry.
The curriculum committee,
Okay.
because if you knew, we'll absolutely.
Yeah,
And Rocker.
It's not a personal slight. I don't feel as a personal slight. It's just that as a parent.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
yes,
do-
as a board member, and there needs to be oversight, but as a parent who has an interest in the school and the curriculum of the school, I just want to make sure other parents have had the opportunity to participate.
Yes.
But also because it's a public document that I was on there, I felt like
Yeah.
I was.
I don't know
So
why
we're
I
really
did that.
surprised when you mentioned that you were also.
Yeah,
on
I
the
was
committee.
surprised.
Like,
I
we
never,
had no clue.
yeah, I'm sorry. That's our
And
oversight.
I was representing the board.
The board, yeah, at that
when we
time.
Participate that meeting, and we do open for parents to participate.
Yeah,
And
actually,
we had the minutes to share with the whole school.
yeah,
So I will give more updates after.
yeah.
the
And actually,
board.
that's something I think board member Freeman brings up a good point as a parent, that we want our parents to know that all, I mean, I'm not sure of the regulations of all the committees, but parents are always welcome to join
Yes.
anything that we're doing here at the school. We want parents to join anything that we're doing at the school. In particular, the curriculum committee. So anyone out there who's like, hey, that sounds something interesting to me, please let us know and we'll make sure to take care of that. Yes.
I just want to say something as a segue for the board recommendation. We can go a little bit more. But definitely, we should establish what are the new committees
Yeah,
and the policies and procedures for those who want to serve, for how long, involvement. Clearly, I think beginning phase. There's been a limited number of committees. But definitely see the school is ever growing, has ever growing needs. Can't count on, parents, everybody needs to chip in. So we'll talk a little bit more at the board recommendation.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Continuing on then with Principal Chong and parents, thank you for the principal's update today.
Good evening, board trustees and parents. So today I'd like to update with the what we discussed during the school site council meeting. This is our first school site council meeting with different attendees. We have 6 parents representative. We went through the election process to make sure parents come from each different grade level to represent their grade level. And we do include certified teachers, 2 teachers, and 2 classified staff. One would be our office staff, and one would be Sunny, who is in charge of the finance. So we have every area covered during this school site council meeting. On our agenda, we talk about the projected enrollment for next school year. So we are projecting 410. That should be the minimum. It could be more, but we want to be more conservative so that if we have more students next year, we can hire more staff. So 410 students for next school year. And then we will need to hire 18 full-time teachers, classroom teachers, and 1 half-time. That would be for the PE, because Coach K can only teach this many students, and we'll need to hire part-time PE teacher. And now I would like to invite our chair, school site council chair, Harry, to share what we have discussed, and they would like board to know their suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we voted on these suggestions. So internally, we plan to make the following changes: increase communication with the parents, including a regular newsletter, which the first one went out yesterday. Focus on positive behavioral intervention and support PBIS system, and increase the services of the school psychologist. And explore using Clever. There's been some concern about having multiple websites for parents to go to figure out which homework they need to do where. But Clever is a tool that can be pulled in to help manage all that for the parents to have one login location. And to the IIA board, we recommend the following policy changes for the upcoming school year. Cap the class size to 28 students per class to ensure classes are manageable and given the curriculum that has to be taught, and the teachers have 2 sets of students at any given grade. So recommending that, with the exception of, if current students, existing students carry over and we go over 28, obviously we have to make that exception. We're not kicking anyone out of this school. Plan on hiring TAs for all the classes. I know, sometimes it could be worded that, upper grades may not need it, but that actually needs it as well, including the curriculum that's being taught. And kind of back to the classroom management thing, it seems like it's needed. Also recommending Mandarin proficiency assessment for all incoming upper grade classes to ensure sufficient Mandarin proficiency prior to entering the upper grades, because this ensures the teacher is not teaching such a wide range of Mandarin proficiency, anywhere from no Mandarin to pretty advanced Mandarin. So that helps the teachers as well. And then lastly, help both, this may not need the board help, but help build a pool of substitute teachers. I know there's been cases where we need to pull substitutes.
So just to let you know, he's also in the curriculum
Oh,
committee. So,
very good.
yeah, my suggestion is that we would like to combine 2 together, because we don't want the 2 to go against each other. Because basically we talk about what's going on at school. So that would be like a collaborative effort. So that would be my suggestion. Combine school site council and curriculum committee.
Very good. Hold on for a moment, just see if there's any clarification from board members. Will we get these then emailed to us from the school site committee?
Yeah, and we have the
No, the
meeting
minutes we'll
minutes
have.
we'll share with you, because it's legal documents,
Right,
and we will publish on our website, once our website is up.
yeah.
So,
We'll hear about that
yes.
too.
And I haven't done yet, I have.
Yeah, you got some more? Okay.
Yeah, I have more.
Anything on school site? Anybody? School site committee?
Well, the school site doesn't have a board member, right? So if you're
No,
gonna,
no more members.
if you're gonna try and combine the curriculum in the school site, the curriculum does need to have, right?
True, yeah.
So you have to think about
Yeah,
that as
We
well.
would, I want board members to join us. Welcome, yes.
Good report, good recommendations, good thought on those. We'll take those under consideration, just as you described them. Let's continue on that.
Okay,
Thank
sure.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So during the LCAP, not LCAP, the school site council meeting, we also start the LCAP process, local control accountability plan. So there are different areas. The first area will be ELA, English Language Arts. So during last board meeting, we already talked about we will purchase the new curriculum called Wonders. And I got a quote, so later we'll add more details. Also, we talk about the PD professional development offer from this vendor. So it is included. So that's the good news. It'll be 3 years purchase for that Wonders. That would be,
how do they conduct that? Is it video instruction or do they send representatives? Any insight on that? for the professional
we
development?
have our English teacher team discussion and then met them. And also they did their research to compare different curriculum and they think this is the one they want. Yeah. So that's for the ELA and then area 2 math. So we are talking about offering professional development for teachers for Singapore math. And for higher grade students, they can attend kangaroo math, math kangaroo. So they can continue doing that. And now since every student have one device of the Chromebook, so we are going to encourage the teacher to use more Khan Academy. It's free online. So they can use that to do more on Khan Academy. That's for the area of math. And the third area will be Mandarin part. So we purchased 5 years of better immersion. So each student have an account. And thank you, Harry, mentioning that using Clever, because now we have so many different websites. And I just contacted Clever yesterday. It's free total. So we already started with the procedure to merge everything. So students just log on the Gmail, and the Gmail, there's an option, click Clever, and then they can log on every website. So we are in the process. So just let parents know that. And Mandarin will also would like to use Google Classroom for performance-based assessment. So basically, we want to encourage students to record themselves when their teacher gave them tasks. So this will be more like practical skills. They can practice their listening and speaking. So it's always listening, speaking, then reading and writing. So that's part of the discussion during our school site council meeting. And we also will contact this company using STAMP, S-T-A-M-P, for the formal assessment. So this will be for 3rd grade and up to let parents know where their Mandarin falls on after a year of learning. Some parents also suggest that more practice on writing Chinese characters. Of course, I'm sure our teacher did that in the classroom. Okay, area 4 will be social emotional learning. So we will continue to implement the positive behavior intervention and support system, PBIS system, and have the school assembly to model behavior show video made by our school, our student council. So I think it'll be great. And have students to do journal writing to reflect their SEL learning. And we are going to finalize and clear the bullying prevention policies. I think that's kind of what we're needing, right? And also, we also have a clear student success team procedure developed. So now our teacher knows what would be step 1, step 2, then begin from there. Okay, family engagement. As Harry shared, we send out the newsletter, school newsletter to keep parents updated. So parents can get to see what's going on at our school and what event will take place next week. Parent-student handbook, I believe we will send it out before school begin next year. So parents can know our school better before the school begins. And more accurate and organized information on our school website. So I'm excited. We'll have a new school website soon, right? All right, so area 6 will be daily attendance. So we plan to give out awards to students with good attendance during the school assembly to encourage them to show up on time. Because currently we are not there yet. In my prior school, we're at 98% daily attendance, but now we are not, probably close to 82. Just to let you know, a lot of children means tardiness. Yeah, latent, not like absence. Latent.
Do you know what our ADA though? in terms of-
That's from the CalPEX. I saw the report.
Do you know what percent?
82%.
94.
94.
94%.
For the ADA.
88, okay, 88, 94%.
Our budget's on 90, based on 95%.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so that's regarding the daily attendance. And then we have English language learners. So we do want to make sure they will finish taking the LPAC initial assessment within 30 days when they enroll in our program. And since our kinder are dismissed at 12:35, so we will have 4 kinder teachers, 2 Mandarin teacher, 2 English teacher, to offer small group intervention in the afternoon. So that's why we want to do continuously to support our ELL learners. And the last part will be special education. We want to increase more service hours for speech therapists and special teacher and resource specialists. And Dr. Watson and I also talked about hiring a science special, not science.
Yeah, actually, I guess that's something that we spoke about for next year is trying to get a student support specialist. I think one thing that our teachers have needed more support with is sort of really support with the students, and that could be positive or not positive behaviors from the students that the teachers need support with. So that's something that we would like to try and look for in the future, getting someone here who can have communication with the parents between special education, school psychologist, speech therapist, any of those, and have that sort of that group shored up, and then have someone to be able to oversee that group and communicate between the parents and the school. So that's what.
So the last part would be school facilities. I know Mr. K is working on that. We are in the process of installation of the doors. So I know it will take some time, but I know it's part of our project.
So that's area 7, is that right, facilities?
Mhm.
Yeah,
So-
feel free if you want to
Also, I'll give
clarify
a-
or talk.
yeah, I'll give a little quick update on the facilities. So one of the parents volunteered too. Sorry, there's a lot of movement that's gone on in the last few months. So a parent has he was an architect that built public schools. And so now, so he generously brought one of his former colleagues. He's since departed that firm, and we did a walkthrough of the school together. And the consensus was, please do not, like, I'm gonna throw a number out, but let's not grip onto it. Call it $150,000, right? For the interior doors. And there's quite a bit of nuances of how it can get approved and not approved, etc. The fundamental question that he asked, which is what I think a couple of us did ask, was what is going to be the strategic plan of how this facility, as we stand at 427 Cameron, is going to be used? Because the doors are vital. And you can see that this facility was modified by, I would presume, the prior tenant, IUSD. You can see, and so before we start putting on immediately spending that money, which we talked about, what is it, public funding? Is there state funding, city funding, is it county funding, or is it has to be through our, should we do a capital campaign? And so ultimately, the project currently has been put a little bit on hold, pause, as we're trying to figure out how this facility will be used in entirety as there's higher age groups. So that's where it stands right now. Once that comes about, then I think full steam ahead, and it looks like that project could be, it can be done expeditiously. The question is, how it will be funded? So that's where we're ending up with facilities.
So before I end my update, so I just want to let board and parents know that I'll send out invitation to the whole school regarding the LCAP process. We do want to get the input from all parents. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Chong. Good interaction. Thank you. At this time, we have Delano Jones of Athena, which is our contracted provider for back office and accounting, along with Ethan Kay, who leads our finance committee. And we're ready for a finance committee update.
Yes, I'll lead it off. So, this for the month of April, we met a little bit earlier. We had it last, I believe, April the 13th at 2 o'clock. So thank you those who attended. And so right now, as you can see from the financials, from the P&L, we're still in healthy relative shape. The key things that came out of it was we are exploring at expansion right now. So there's the one is about whether or not we should be taking on what we call factoring loan. So right now, Delano and Dr. Watson are working through the paperwork for us to potentially get sources of cash in the event as we expand. Number two is regarding the first draft of next year's budget. That will be actually, so again, Delano and Dr. Watson are working together along with Principal Chuang on creating a first draft that should be presented in the month of May to the finance committee. That first draft needs to be submitted to our authorizer, I believe, at the end of June. Correct, Delano? Yeah.
Yes, final draft in June.
So again, we've been collecting, there's collecting a list of expenses that needs to be factored in, and then somehow massaging the numbers. So again, the really key thing right now is how to make sure that the budget that's going to be for next year, there's more teeth to it. This year, there was a lot of movement and created a lot of confusion about messaging. We have money. We don't have money. Well, where's the money? We're profitable, but we need money. All this, there was a little bit more confusion than ordinary, but it's still customary. So the whole idea is how to create more of a budget that has teeth to it. A very big component of that budget will be, there's some revenue sources. It's going to be around after school. So looks like Dr. Watson is addressing that program right now. That was a very big blessing to the school this year from an income perspective, but it needs to be more policy procedures in place. And then the one other thing was regarding those mentioning about, I believe, the assistant teachers and the compensation. So that was actively brought up. That's something that we've been actually been aware of, but not the decision, but the actual decision was I recommended, I'd like to see where the first draft of the budget was going to be like. The PTO, has graciously given a pledge to the school for $44,000. It was going to be paid in two different parts. Part one was $21,000, and there was going to be another $23,000 for the purpose of funding assistant teachers during the school. There's been a lot of movement with that. 100% of that $21,000 was spent only for the assistant teachers. There's no misunderstanding about if money was diverted elsewhere this way. So the question now comes regarding the 23,000. So there's been some discussion with the PTO, and rightfully so. Now so right now the school has successfully hired
Number of teacher assistants is 12.
12. But now there is a discussion of compensation. And unfortunately, there is a little bit of compensation disparity between the school hours, assistants, and the after school. Okay. So these are things that we need to work through it and making sure it's equitable, because at the end of the day, IIA and known as a school, and Wonder Kids, also known as after school, we're all under the same roof. It's the same entity. The principals have to be treated the same. Right or wrong, good or bad, there's been some disparity. So
Disparity in the hourly wage.
and disparity in the hourly wage. And it's been frustrating to multiple stakeholders, myself included. But before we start, okay, the easy fix is let's start raising the rates right away. That's easy. And PTO has graciously said, hey, well, you can maybe use some made possible. There's extra funds, but the more importantly is this is the obligation of the school, not necessarily the PTO. If the PTO wants to graciously give every year, that's great. But it's also this is a school. This is an operational expense. So the question is, great, this fund can be supporting for the first year, which is what some other private donors have done. But it should be normalized, it should be supported from an ongoing basis. And so right now we're hoping sooner than later, right now, the quicker. I know some of these assistant teacher aides, teacher aides are seeking higher compensation. I recognize that. It's vital. But I also cannot want to make sure that the finances next year can support 12 plus the growing number of students and classroom and teachers. So I'm hearing right now there's need with the growing school, more teachers, right? More classrooms, more teachers, more aides. And some requests for a little bit lower student per classroom. These need to be factored in. So the finance committee heard it. Definitely here to report it. And this will be coming to, will be resolved shortly.
Yeah, we'll agendize it as soon as we have an offer from the PTO. And the big idea is, can the teachers' aides receive increased compensation to finish this year out? Certainly next year's budget will include normalized compensation. And so if PTO is able to connect with the committee and commit it, we will do it. We'll bring it before the board and vote on it. So really good. Continuing on, more Ethan from you and Delano.
Delano, do you have anything else to add?
I think Ethan covered, and good evening, everyone. Glad to be with you guys again. I believe Ethan covered everything. I just want to reiterate that the next couple of months here, will be key for us in terms of working through all of the operational matters that will turn the corner into next year as well. So just be prepared. The next 2 months are critical for admin and staff and for the board as well, because we will be bringing a lot of items to you that will require, debate, contemplation, and approval. And so I just want to set the table for that the next 2 months will encompass a lot of that. So that's all that I have.
If I can add one more thing, I just want to announce the finance committee for the month of May will be adjusted. It's tentatively set for May the 10th at
1:30.
1:30 p.m.
May 10th, 1:30 for all who'd like to participate.
Yes.
Board comments or clarifications. One thing for Delano and for Ethan, are you receiving from our executive director the forecast new positions for next year? For instance, if we're going to move from a part-time role to a full-time, if we had a part-time nurse, but we're going to incorporate in the budget full-time. Are you receiving those positions yet, or will that come out of our school site committee?
So I can answer that a little bit, just because of the process that we have. So I meet every Friday with the executive director. So as part of our meeting, that will be summarized there. And the intent is that, he will go back to his various stakeholders there and sort of, bring that forward. Then he and I will discuss it. And obviously then that gets discussed at the finance committee level, being that he is also part of that group. So there, we'll sort of put a little bit of legwork on the ED, but it will come back to finance committee for discussion as well.
And have you received the recently published Irvine Unified School District salary schedules? Because we don't have to hold to those, but part of our board commitment was we're going to be competitive. So you have access to that data for next year?
Yes.
Miller, anything? Okay, great. Thank you for the finance committee update. Next, we have 5 agenda items, and prior to each one, we'll have the opportunity for public comments. I know we have at least one, but nobody is foreclosed. Mary Beth's right here. If one of these agenda items is one you want to speak on, or all. In this case, about 2 minutes, again, with a total of 20 minutes on each. The first board agenda item will be an update, not a decision or an action. The topic is, what is the board doing for ongoing training to improve Brown Act compliance? I'll be sharing some of the updates and the plans on that. Lynn Riddle, would you please share your comments with us first, and then anyone else just see Mary Beth, please.
Go ahead, you comment or Howard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good evening, board. My name is Lynn Middle, and I am a resident of the county, although not a parent of any child in your school, as would be obvious to all of you. I'd first ask, once again, you have 2 minutes scheduled for comments during this period, and I'm not exactly sure why, and hope that you may extend it to 3.
We're okay with 3 for sure.
Yeah, we had this discussion slightly, so I just don't see the difference between earlier and later public comments, why we shouldn't have the same minute. So if that's okay, and I'll try to be less than that in any case, although now I've taken up a minute. In any case, I want to address your agenda, and I spoke a little bit about it at the last meeting, about your website. And I really only come here to share with you because I want the school to succeed. I've heard these parents on both sides, and they love this school. They are upset by a number of things, and they're on different sides of the aisle about how to review those. But everyone that I've heard wants this school to succeed. And I joined that just as a community member. It's best for all of us that our schools succeed. But I found that your website is not at all helpful. And as I said, and told you before, that I've been a lawyer for 46 years or something along those lines, and I'm sort of familiar with it. It's kind of my way of viewing the world. So I want to address agenda items tonight. For one thing, I noticed that while this is noticed as an in-person meeting, I was looking to see whether there was a link or hyperlink to a Zoom site so that people who cannot come at dinner time and their family members and can observe the meetings. I think that would be helpful. I didn't see one here, and I hope maybe you'll do that in the future and put it on your agenda. The other thing, I was really moved by, at the last meeting I attended, I think that was March 29th, and it was board member K, after hearing a lot of comments, etc. Seemed somewhat anguished. I won't put words in your mouth, but that was the way I perceived it, about so much turmoil that has occurred, and you'd like things to settle down. And you mentioned something about the confusions. Well, I think the confusions come largely because this board has largely failed for its whole first year completely to follow the Brown Act. And that's so important, and you really must do it. You are now an agency as a public school, you're an agency of government, and you have an obligation to follow the law, and you have not been following the law, and you need to. And so what I wanted just to do, and what I've come to do tonight, I've spent some hours putting together what is, and I'll hand this to your aide here, or your, I'm sorry, I'm probably not using the right word, your executive secretary, a document which is really a demand, but it's a very polite one, that you comply with the Brown Act. And I've listed many, many illustrations here that go to your agenda tonight. And so I give it to you as a tool and as a helpful, hopefully, and caring tool. The original is signed and goes to the chair. It's the 2-page document. So if you would give that to him, that's my formal request. So I just want to finalize by saying, I don't know if that's 2 or 3, I'm sorry. May I finish? Yes, thank you so much. And I just point out in your agenda tonight, you know, you are required to give the public access to the documents, every document that you receive in preparation for a meeting, not only documents, writings of any kind, are to be shared with the public. And I note on tonight's agenda, at the very bottom, you have a list of documents, but those are very difficult to find. It's a very, very difficult path to find for most people. And I suggest you would just not satisfy the Brown Act. But I go back and just remind you, and if you look at your own agendas for March the 17th and March the 22nd, there where you had documents that you needed to share with the public, you actually put a hyperlink that if one clicked on it on the agenda, it took you directly to the document. You didn't have to go fishing around here, there, and everywhere on the website. You folks don't have to do that because you probably get it in alternative ways. But I advise you to look at the navigation, the almost impossible navigation of your website to stay into compliance with the Brown Act. I wish you well in that, but I will be watching you and reminding you lovingly, I hope, in the future. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're welcome to just see Mary Beth, or just announce yourself if you would, please, and continue on. You can lift that microphone.
Thank you. This won't be long. So I was just on this agenda one, per Araceli Chastain at the April 6th OCBE meeting, she mentioned receiving an email from Doug saying that OCBE trustee Ken Williams would hold a Brown Act training for this board prior to this April board meeting. So I was just wondering if that was done before today. And then I was also wondering why Mr. Williams instead of Nick Driver, because I thought Nick Driver is is on contract with IIA for it. So I was just wondering if Mr. Williams did he get paid as well as Mr. Driver? So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll give you an update on that. It leads into our, anyone else, by the way? Sorry. If not, I'll go ahead and continue with the update. So with Brown Act, the board actually is largely in compliance with Brown Act. Brown Act in general prevents secret or meetings between the board. The board's been excellent at that. We don't have meetings outside of our public meetings. We don't have what are considered chain meetings where one board member talks to another board member who talks to another board member about items or issues within the school. So contrary to maybe some of what has been said, the board has been largely compliant with Brown Act. We're transparent. We do our business in public. Procedurally, I will admit that it's been an ongoing improvement process with an agenda that adequately describes items. Our oversight board had said we would like to see greater reference, about 20 words for about each agendized item, so it's understandable to the public. And so I would say there's some improvement that's happened there, and our agendas are much more rich. Website has been an issue. And so during the last board meeting till this board meeting, the homepage now has a prominent link that says board meetings. It has an icon for itself. And with one click there, it's to the board landing page. The board landing page has a schedule of all meetings for the year, and a large click here, which exposes all the agenda and all of the supporting documents. It's not perfect yet, but it's navigatable. We tested that with over 20 people, most who were not affiliated with the school, and had universal success. So improvements are coming. You'll hear later about a website that is in a more modern language, responsive on devices like handheld phones and also iPads. That's a problem right now because the current website does not resize on other devices. So it's a known problem that we're addressing. On the board training, the board, as they onboarded, or the initial board, actually read the original legislative act. But the legislative act just gives the broad background and laws about the Brown Act. What really matters is how you apply it. That then has been developed as challenges have come to whether people are compliant or not. What does compliance look like? So currently, the board has had some board training online. Each is prescribed a 2-hour video on the Brown Act. Some have completed that already. Today, the question was, would one of the trustees of the Orange County Board of Education provide training for us? That was an original plan, but became inappropriate because there was a concern from the Orange County Board of Education. It no longer was proper for one of their trustees to resolve or participate in the resolution. So instead, our consultant, Nick Driver, did training today, beginning at 5 p.m. before this board meeting. That training was largely scenario-based. He presented and recapped some of the laws for the Brown Act, but then we spent time talking about scenarios in a board meeting and how they should be handled, both closed session, open session. So I think it was pretty fruitful for our board. But I think the 2-hour training was great because it had hypotheticals based on real board situations that have happened throughout California. Brett, would you speak to any of the qualitative nature of that training?
So the training is provided, it's online through YouTube, it was local. So any of us can access it and re-access it at any time. It's very helpful. It did speak to scenarios. It's probably something that I'll watch a few times because there's so much detail, but it's all about the application of it that's so critical. Having Nick Driver is excellent because then we can ask those questions. What about this or what about that? He's been helpful along the way, and I presume we'll have more trainings in the future to support our compliance.
Yeah, thank you. Any other board members want to comment on our plans for ongoing Brown? So when we do have new parents and board members that join, that'll be part of the onboarding. It'll be the 2-hour course, and then also joining us with our consultant as well. And then unfortunately, they have to read the legislative act, which is fairly long legislative language. Great. Next on our agenda then is discussion and an update on the recruitment of a permanent executive director. I want to pause and allow some public comment that might be desired on that. And then we'll give an update on where we're at with the beginning search. Anyone like to speak on that topic, the recruitment of a permanent executive director? As you know, we're operating currently with an acting or interim executive director, Dr. Watson. Okay, let me give an update then. Our human resources manager has posted an open position with a job description. It's in the board packet. And it's, well, very similar with a few changes to the role that Dr. Watson responded to and is fulfilling right now. That posting will run for 4 weeks. And when it closes, the candidates then will be presented to the board. They'll have opportunity to interview candidates. Our acting executive director will have access to our principal, and we'll do a bit of a 360 interview process in doing so. And then the board will also forecast in to public and parents our candidates, who they are. And when we've narrowed the search and are ready for a selection, we'll bring them before the public as well. So, and then of course, we're optimistic and hoping that, but we don't know, that our acting director will also apply for the permanent role. Let me pause there. Board comments or thoughts on the search? So search is used in one of the tools that's pretty common. It's EdJoin, where most educators discover where roles are, even those that would move from another area. And it does have the executive director title, but also as a tag or a search word. We use the word superintendent because some districts recognize or other charters recognize their lead as a superintendent. So for those looking for tags like that, they'll find ours as well. I don't have an update on any candidates. We won't know the candidates until it closes. Go ahead.
And then has there been a procedure also interview process? Who will be part of it?
Rachel Carrillo, who is our HR manager, will be conducting. We already have a basic battery of questions. This is a unique position. In a typical hiring process, there is a static battery of questions. So every candidate's asked the same exact questions by a team, and then immediately following, they debrief in writing. This one does not require that, but we're going to do it the same way. So it's a little bit of a higher standard that we're going to apply on this one, even though that particular position is exempt from that rigor, but we want to do it. So glad you reminded me of that. It's part of the process.
Can I ask one more question? What is the timeline? Is there a hard date that we want an executive director permanent?
Right. So we must place, we have to place an executive director by July 1st. We only have our current interim director on contract through June 30th. If we had to extend that for some reason, we have leeway, but that's not our goal. We really want to decide on that person to start July 1 and with plenty of time to do a fair evaluation and not be hurried.
Would we be looking at a 2-year contract?
We believe, the question is, will we look at a 2-year contract? And we believe that's necessary to attract the person that we would want. However, there will be ample protections for both sides and fairness, but we won't necessarily be obligated to a 2-year contract, but we would want to offer that. For good discussion. Moving on to number 3, again, it's a discussion, and it's the discussion about new board member recruitment process and the status of current candidates. Love to hear, as we have in previous meetings, any comments from public as well. Then I'll give the update and allow board members to comment as well. But parents and public, any additional thoughts that you'd like to contribute on the idea of recruiting board members, the new board members? Currently, we have 6, of course, active. Yes, please. Would you introduce yourself as you start?
My name is Priscilla. I just have some questions. How many parents or board members are you planning to fill in the seats, especially if it's going to be, if he is going to be an ED or not? Is he going to be going
Repeat
back?
that second one a little closer.
Also, Dr. Watson, if he will be the ED or
Oh,
not.
his status.
Yeah, status. Right now he's temporary on leave, right? So I just want to know the qualification for the members and how many, like 1 to 2 years, or just like I said, there's a lot of things that we done. They have one about the Brown Act and other legislative, other just understanding what the needs are basically. So
Great. And we'll get to all of those, I believe, too. Anything else you want included in the discussion? Great. Anyone else? We're going to cover that scope and schedule as well, and then the status, what happens with Dr. Watson as well. Any others? Thank you, by the way, for all the previous board meeting comments. They really have directed our actions and attention. The board members today received a list from myself with 6 candidates that are in discussion and would be under consideration to add to the board. The scope we like to operate and have the ability to operate with up to 15 board members. 7 has been a really good number for us. We're currently operating at 6 and would like to get to 7. There's some reasons for having an odd number that are good. Ultimately, each will describe what their desires. My desire is to have 9, because in today's modern world, out of 9, it's very likely 2 will be traveling almost every month. That still gives us 7 actively participating. That's a personal preference that's within our charter. We'll hear from the others in a moment. The process where we identified first candidates began a couple of months ago. The way it works is there's a governance subcommittee. I chair that. Secondary on that committee has been Dr. Jolene Smith. And then generally, the executive director is also on that committee. Dr. Scott is resigned from that committee, so there's not a third person. We can, as a board, decide to add Edward Watson to that. That is the gathering committee. That's where parents, public would inquire with a desire to be on the board. So they first just email me and I receive those. It is still open and it's an ongoing open process, but I would invite any parents watching personally or online later. If that's an interest of yours, it doesn't have to be a commitment of yours to say, yes, I want to be on the board. It's just an interest. I had an interview today along with Brett Freeman with a father with 2 children in our school who expressed not a desire to be on the board, but was willing to express interest. So you get the idea, interest, then desire, and we continue on. So that's open to everybody. There are 6 currently. Of those 6, some have had discussions with as many as 3 board members. Also in the discussion process, we want them to talk to the PTO president or vice president, and then also the executive director and principal. So that's the scope of our interview process. Our charter allows us to bring people to the board just from our subcommittee, but I don't feel that's adequate. I would rather candidates get to talk to nearly every board member. So currently the board member knows the candidates. They're receiving the contact information with email and phone number to then reach out to them. Same with our principal, executive director, and then our PTO president. So that's our process. Once they've had those conversations, they'll communicate, and we keep a log of their comments, having summarized their conversation. Then my subcommittee will bring them before the board as candidates. Before that, we'll let the parents all know who they are, so that you have ample time to either go meet them, and then before a board would invite them and vote on them, you'll have public comments to comment on your interactions with those. Schedule. We have a need by July 1st to place at least 1, more likely 2, and it could be 4. And so my personal goal is to see by July 1st at least 2 somewhere along the way. I don't care if they come, if we're able to get to these quicker and we place one. I want a 7th fairly quick. And then in July, there's just going to be board change at some point, right? People's lives shift, change, and their seasons. And so I want to be prepared for that. I'll hit pause. That's the process and the update and status of where we're at. Now I want to hear, because we don't get to talk about this outside of this meeting. And so I'm going to invite thoughts and comments on scope, schedule, and criteria, what you're looking for as well.
I'll start off.
Yeah. And if you can use the mic, it's nice.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you anyway.
Okay. So one of my not concern is it's fine to bring on board brand new board members, but generally, one thing I'd like to see in the future is that these board members are coming from those who serve on the committees. Again, it's a circular issue. We haven't set up the committees, but because so they can get caught up to speed. When something I think it's one of my concerns is as these new board members come on, they will be inundated with a bunch of information as a new board member and be somewhat may not overwhelmed with information they now are able to see versus if they start in other committees, whether it be the finance, that's a separate curriculum, even the facilities in anything. So at least they understand some of the more the school from the inside, and as a way of vetting to show that there's commitment, because this being board is this is a working board. But glad that for any parents that come because they're children. That's very important. They're children, so our parent to serve is also very key as well. So whatever decision that they're going to be making will also impact their children as well. But going forward, as soon as the stability, now the board, committees, the infrastructure, I would hope that a selection board comes from the committees themselves.
I think the board has said in the past too, PTO participation is also one way for people to become familiar and be identified. Brett, you said something in a meeting today, and you said this is a working board. Would you elaborate just on your expectation for board members? I forgot to mention that 5 of the 6 that are in consideration right now are parents. One is not, but is a person involved in education in a nearby school. I forgot to mention, because we heard, I think, very clearly that, and we agree that parent participation on the board is essential. But Brett, would you talk about working board and value add?
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't say a set number. And I think there are plenty of charter schools that have twice as many kids as we have with fewer board members. So it's really about the quality of the individual and the expertise they bring to the board and to the school. But whoever decides to apply, I really hope they'll be in a position that have the time and the passion to want to get involved. You see us once a month, sometimes more than once a month, but actually we are working behind the scenes on our subcommittees, our standing committees, and we're quite engaged and involved with the school. It speaks for everybody that's currently involved in the board. So I would highly encourage those that want to apply to understand the expectation is that we're all going to work as a team for the benefit of the school. Thanks.
So for me, right, I think we need 7 immediately. Because there are times that we cannot sometimes attend meetings. So I think we need that. Around the well, you're going to get people to drop out, right? And that's something us as a board needs to figure out. Who wants to stay, going to two or not, right? And that's going to impact not future generations. The other thing is we need to bring some diversity. Right? We have one person. Children, that needs more.
Those are good insight, and they echo what we've heard from some parents. But I know they're your beliefs as well, and you and I are in harmony on the scope. You get too many, it becomes unwieldy in some ways with voting, and yet you do get great representation, but it's cumbersome. Some boards are 5 and they're very efficient, but just recognizing the practicality when we're trying to harmonize schedules. We're looking at people that travel a lot. I think I forecast to you all, I have 60 days of travel that will not permit in-person board meetings between now and the end of the year. That means you're running the meeting, but that goes to your point. I mean, we can read remote, but in person, we owe it to people to be here in person doing that. So that will influence our scope. Miller, any thoughts from you on that board participation and process?
Yeah, I think probably as as this school in the founding stage, I was part of it already. So I started with And then also I just see each one of you get on board. So I mean, I'm enjoying and then seeing the growing, and then also it's working so hard. And then of course, right at the beginning, this is with Michael Scott. That, I mean, we both shared the dream together. And then also looking into the need for international. This is not just language, it's culture, it's leadership. That, we really wish for the children that, can succeed far beyond the competition of the world. I think that is what we see because we've been traveling and then seeing that language is a benefit, but beyond the language is leadership, the character that, our children, can they stand in front of the world? So, I mean, I'm a Chinese, but at the same time, I can say myself as a Latino, spent, 7 years over in South America with my whole family, the benefit that, international. So all my 4 children are bilingual, trilingual. So, and then they're not just standing there, try to answer questions, they communicate and they're also reaching out. So I think those are, as an educator, that we should build something is not for just passing the exam. This is really that want to see the fruit that, can be sent to the international. Because, I mean, without crossing the ocean, come to North America, I don't think that I have the chance that to become an international. So, and then enjoying, and then also all this time that, for COVID. So this is my first day that comes over. And then I really enjoyed it as I work on the campus. This is beautiful. It's, compared with working in the campus of China, campus in Canada. This is beautiful. So you have the golden weather and then also the golden opportunity. And then also I just see the school size, the student really enjoy it. And then at the same time, I'm not just seeing just Chinese. I'm seeing an international right here. So, I mean, I would just congratulate every board member that you're hardworking. So, and as you mentioned, the working board, I think we are working. And then we are working in international in a way, even though looks like, the districts are different. But I think we have to put into the diversity. And then also the multi-international. And then also multi-generation. Because this is talking about, I mean, student needs, I think parents needs more examples that, that their children can learn. So as a grandparents, I'm a grandfather of 5 children, 5 grandchildren, that I still stay young. But at the same time, just seeing that, pursuing education, that just one goal, but I think pursuing leadership, that, that's the C. So I think the quality of the board needs to be that standard. That language, linguistically, that, we need it, but education, experience. So this is what, and of course, the heart of the engagement. And then I think every school, I mean, for the whole last year for this school, well, I do see the challenging. We experience the challenging together, but at the same time, thank you for the resources that we have from the parents, from the community that we learn together. So this is new to everyone, but I think if we work together, we'll have more future. But if we try to divide, then it won't make benefit for our children. The children really want to see the harmony in life. I think this is really that. So as we're looking at the more board members, is I think something that is strengthening our growth. But I do echo with Ethan that, really, I think to experiencing that in the community, from the community, from the committee that, people that can be not just parents, the people that has a heart for education from the community that should be in there. So yeah, because I think from a parents and myself, I think parents sometimes has to learn along the way because their children to go through with. So that's why there's so many to learn. And then people want to build something that for generations, not just for this generation. I think probably for the generations coming. That way they can see 3 generations together, you can 4 generations. So that's the examples that we're making. So see my children just echo, cheer for me for that. They said, I wish Canada has a school like this. They said, well, let's do it. I have to find some founders. Yeah. So I enjoyed it. Yeah, for since the beginning, and then also seeing it become true. That yeah. So and then we have someone joining us. Yeah.
Well, Miller, what I heard and what some don't know is well over a year and a half before the reality of the school came about, you held to the vision of what it could be. And I think that's what you highlight. Board candidates must act independently. You don't have to be in complete agreement with other board members on how you see every topic or issue, but the harmony should be found in the vision of the school. And it's a white hot vision. I mean, this is unique. And if we can learn anything here that's transferable to any other district in California or to Canada, that's the global impact as well. So thank you for reminding us, first and foremost, be in harmony with the vision. And it's a good one. Thank you. That's our last discussion. We move to discussion and action now on our other items. Next is number 3. Our executive director and principal have prepared the calendar for next year. We're going to invite public comments. Edward, do you want to share in a moment just some of the inputs and the thought? Do we try to harmonize with Irvine Unified for the parents who have kids in both? We're okay with you giving a preamble, but before we discuss as a board and vote, I want to invite public comment. But could you give a little background on the calendar?
Yeah, the calendar is just a standard the start date, end date, and federal holidays, and then the school holidays. We just had to line up the dates with that. And of course, just like this year, we take ISD into account of how we're going to set up our calendar. So it's pretty routine.
In addition, did you take into consideration some of our emphasis? This year, we were able to celebrate or harmonize with Chinese New Year.
Yeah, so
and some other particular things to our school. I know the answer to this, but I want you to get the
we
opportunity
want
to share that.
to say, yeah, of course, this year, just like this year, next year, we'll have a week off for Spring Festival, Chinese New Year, which is nice for a lot of parents I know. So this will keep us in sort of trying to, the school, and the way I look at it is a bridging of, cross-cultural communication. So I think this is an example of that, having that time off for the celebration of Spring Festival. So that's something that we will continue to do here at IIA.
Thank you. Public comments open for anyone who would like to just feel free to step up if there's any comments on the adoption and approval of our calendar for next school year. Board discussion before I ask for a motion to adopt the provided calendar.
Question. Yeah. Payback time to open house event. So that's a day off from the staff.
Say that one more time because I think Edward will hold the answer.
I'm looking at the front page that shows all the holidays. Let's see, payback time to open house events. What is that?
Could you comment on that briefly? It may be an internal note that we've included, but it would be good just to define what that is.
Yeah, I think originally that was going to be, so I'm looking at it here.
May 26th.
Yeah, that's the 2021, 2022 calendar I'm looking at. I'm wondering if the one you're looking at is for this year.
No, this is for next year.
Oh, okay. My understanding, payback time to open house event. Okay, so my understanding is this, I believe there was going to be some type of open house, like an open, like come visit the school. But I'm not sure that that's happening. I think that was gonna happen this year as well. But actually, I was just speaking to some teachers and the principal about, because that's on the calendar for this, for like the last day. And I think we're not going to do that because it's kind of, I don't know why it was on there. It was before I arrived in this position. So I don't know what the main goal of it was for. But as far as I'm concerned, it appears to be something to where future parents can come in. But now, as many of you know, we have the tours on every Tuesday scheduled. So I think that's where a lot of our prospective parents are getting to be able to see the entire school. Now, what isn't on here and something that we are considering, which is related to this open house event, is doing like a kindergarten roundup sort of thing right before the school year starts in August, to where the incoming students will, have some type of activity or program or orientation, if you will. And that is something we're considering for this August, but that wouldn't necessarily be on the calendar.
Okay.
Just one other point. I see there's some color coding, but then I see there are other colors. I'm not sure why.
It doesn't say what the colors are for on that
I
one.
mean, some, the blue and green. But then
Yeah,
there's
teacher
yellow,
work
and there's
days.
red, and there's,
Yeah, there needs to be a clearer legend on here. Yeah, there is, but they're just not color coded. You are correct. This is not the one that I've seen, so I apologize. We got this one. The yellow, which is not on here, the color coding that would go for the early out day, which it's not, because that's not on here. That would be the early out day. That would be all the yellows. The pinks are the holidays, which are not color coded on this one here as well. But for some of these, it does say like Lunar New Year, January 23rd. We see that, and that's a pink holiday, but that's not color coded. So I think because, I'm not sure who made this or how you got it, but I'll make sure that the one that goes out far and wide on the website is taken care
Has the adequate color.
of. Yeah, it has adequate color.
So we got a couple options. One is this, with this particular calendar, if it's time is of the essence, meaning that our oversight board needs a draft of our next year's calendar immediately, we can move forward with the agenda item. If it's not time dependent, we can also table the item and just approve, the perfected calendar. Generally, the overall calendar doesn't change. You certainly have liberty to make modifications and add events. We don't list every event. Like the kindergarten event doesn't need to be listed on this calendar. Or any thoughts on whether, do you know if it's time dependent to Orange County Board of Education?
No.
Okay. What's your feeling on table versus picking this up at the next meeting and giving a chance to perfect it a little bit?
I think so.
Yeah, if you're okay with that, we'll do one more round. It's just nicer. You get one more set of eyes. We might be looking at N-1 copy, one generation back.
Yeah.
It's just, if you guys get the next one, we'll put it on the agenda and approve it
Yes,
if nobody minds. Great.
100%. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's a good point. This year, what did you say, June 19th? Oh, Juneteenth. Yeah, I think the calendar you're looking at is having holidays on there that we don't necessarily take off as a school. And that would include Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day and Juneteenth. But Juneteenth is after the school day. It's the school calendar is done anyway. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you for helping us with that. Item number 4 is discussion and action. We've made material, meaning significant additions, changes, and then also some small edits, typographical corrections that we want to present to our Board of Education for our charter. We'll talk about a couple of them just briefly and then invite some public comments. But here's a couple of the categories. One is as our school grows year to year, we have to identify and change our chart that allows for the capacity that we want in the school. So that's the main change here. We're growing in our kindergarten capacity next year, and we're also adding grade levels as we grow. And so this year, we have a 4-5 class, we're adding 6. So that's one of the main changes or material revisions that we're asking for approval from Orange County Board of Education. It's always been within our forecasted evolution and development. A couple of the other changes that we're adding to that. Dr. Watson and some parents have forecast in the past a desire for us to investigate from 4th grade to 8th grade, implementing a GATE program, the Gifted and Talented program that adds challenge for some schools. We can do that. And so in this material change, we're asking the Board of Education to allow us in the future to develop it. We're not promising we're developing it. So that's a material change as well. It could in the future attract people to our school. It brings with it some management issues because you don't have GATE children, you have a GATE class. And so we're not committing to it, but we're opening up the opportunity for it. And thank you for writing up the narrative on that. That took quite a bit of work. You want to comment on that before we invite public comments?
Yeah, that did take quite a bit of work. So far with some of the material changes, we are going through the process and the steps. So there's a few things I think that we're going to discuss tonight that are material changes to the petition, and some of them are farther along than others. So we're going through the process of the steps with respect to GATE. It is not as far along as some of the other ones, but it is something that we are looking into. And as Board President Houston just stated, it's something we want to have the option of doing. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're looking to implement it in the fall. And as I mentioned earlier in my address to the public, before things are finalized, I think this is something that we definitely want to hear some parent feedback, more parent feedback on. The curriculum committee, as Board President mentioned, has discussed it, but that does include parents, but that's just a small sample of parents.
Thank you for adding that in, and thank you for initiating on that and making it a possibility for us in this round. Public comments and your input, please come and just identify yourself. Let's go to the right and then to the left. Yes, thank you. And just
Hi, I just have a question about the possible GATE program. What grade you think that's going to start having that program? I mean, I think
Yeah, as Board President said, it probably would be 4th grade.
4th grade and up. Okay.
Yeah, but I also would like to say that one reason I want parent response to it is because I know some people view it differently. Parents like to have it. It looks like a feather in their cap. But arguably, our entire school is one big GATE program,
Right.
because we have immersion here,
Right.
and kids learning Chinese is something that is very much advanced level. So so that's what we looked at. So I think there's some pros or some cons to it. So like Board President said, we definitely want to have it as an option. So that's
So
what
you're
we're-
not looking at like, we're gonna, right now we only have one 4th grade, one. 5th
Yeah,
grade,
it wouldn't be
Because, we only have
with
one
small
class.
numbers, yeah. But soon we hope to have, a
Right.
lot bigger 4th grade. I mean, next year, if the 3rd graders move up, that's 2 classes right there. So
Okay.
Mhm.
Wasn't sure, like, would that be beneficial, if, like you said, all of them are gates versus, some students are gay and some are not. It makes the
well, I welcome the comments from the parents.
psychological kind of,
I-
like,
yeah,
oh, you're higher up than me. That kind of.
Yeah,
that's all.
this is what I'm talking about. I welcome these comments as we move further down this
Yes,
process.
please.
So again, since you mentioned about GATE program, how about the STEMs or the science, the other subject we actually need for
Yeah.
subjects that we need to work on first? I mean, I know it's a long term,
Yeah,
but then we need also admin, TA, and a lot of stuff. So we don't have a foundation down yet. So we have so many things we need to get done. So,
yes, of
I mean,
course.
I'm glad we have that program, but then,
Well, we don't have GATE
I mean,
yet.
well, I mean,
It's something
writing
we're thinking about, but
petition
there's,
for that one,
yes,
for
of
that.
course, and that's curriculum, and the principal mentioned earlier in his address, a lot of the curriculum development that we're also in the process of doing as well. So yes, of course.
Yeah, so
that's-
we do need a science or some other subject that we, like, the whole school, not just for certain kids that are smart. I know there's a lot of smart kids here, but we need to make sure that others have, you know,
Of course.
that's all.
Great, so we're gonna invite a couple more comments and we'll speak to the STEM portion of the charter petition too. Please come.
So you guys might be talking about this later. I was trying to look on the website for I think you call them revisions, right, for this portion. So one of them I did notice for the director of curriculum, one of the, I think they're blue lined out for the stuff that we're going to be edited. But then under the director of curriculum, I noticed that there was one qualification that currently says English fluency and preferred bilingual and biliterate in Mandarin Chinese. But there was a prior petition or edition of it back in October of 20 that said strictly bilingual and biliterate, not using the word preferred. So I wasn't sure if this was something that was changed since that time. I know I emailed this board about this in February. So I don't know if that was something that's changed since, or what would happen with that. And with the changing of it saying preferred, does that open up for probably a Kennedy Rocker coming back or someone else who doesn't speak? But so just to speak on that. So I'm just curious about that.
Thank you. Great question. We'll answer that one directly too in a moment. Others, as we discuss that one, as board members. I want to start with that one. The preferred wasn't changed to bring back a previously employed person at all. Instead, just to allow us some flexibility in the future to find a very unique individual. That's a very unique role. And the charter can operate without that role as well. And so just a little more flexibility, but no particular intention at all. Board, let's discuss the changes and your thoughts on those. The first and foremost important is enrollment and the idea that we would grow. In our charter, we forecast the ability to grow even larger if needed than was forecast by Principal Chung. And so how do you feel about us with increasing the capacity first? Critical, okay, yeah.
Well, all I'm gonna say is, pretty honest, we took on 4 more classrooms, so our rent went up.
Yeah, it does.
So to give some idea, under this facility, we next year, this year used all except for 8 rooms. Next year, there's about 4. We take the schools to about 4 or 6 more rooms on the outside, so there's only 4 rooms remaining. It's on the inside corridor. You should probably see a lot of storage that's IIA is using. So this.
Yeah, so we'll be increasing up, but still have some future capacity, but we have the ability to grow and there's the demand there to grow. And we've seen that with the waiting lists that exist currently. So.
Yes, it's part of the lease.
Yeah, we were able to in our new Prop 39 lease that was offered to us. So yeah, great question. So we have the pre-approved capacity in our lease, and now we're asking the Board of Education to approve our greater capacity. We don't have to fill it all up, but we can't go beyond what we've asked for in the past. So this is a very important change. It will take up to 90 days for the Board of Education to consider it, evaluate it, discuss with us, and then ultimately ratify it for us. That allows us by August to actually have the students come in. Really important.
There's still some reference to executive director and superintendent. So
It needs to get updated. And we need to get that.
So two topics noticed by our board. One is that in our charter petition, the titles superintendent and executive director are used interchangeably often in charter schools depending on who is communicating with us. So sometimes the state of California wants to communicate with a superintendent of a charter school, but in our school, for clarity and to remove some confusion, a number of months ago, we decided as a board that internally we'll refer to our head of school as the executive director. Parents seem to prefer that. They understood that. However, we reserve the idea that when communicating outside the school, when someone's expecting a signature block to be superintendent, the executive director can operate as superintendent in that way. There's a second issue. Describe the one that you would like to see at least in the next edit as well.
So right now it has Michael Scott on there, so we need to, if we're going to submit the document, we need to put at least the interim directors. I don't know. And we need to remove Edward as board.
That's one we need to get a little bit of advisement on, right? Because we have a different executive director. We should note that now. It's not in our published first edit here. Ultimately, when we place a permanent executive director, we'll need to go and get a revision again to update that. We may have to get some counsel from the Board of Education if that's a showstopper for them, or if they're okay with the edits we make at this point and we come back a second round. Don't want to delay the request to get the proper number of students in. I don't mind fixing the Dr. Scott reference, which is historical primarily, but we'll get some advice on that, but we can't really make an on-the-fly change. We can agendize that for a special meeting for a new edit, or just pick it up at the next board meeting and submit it. That's probably our better procedure is to do that. But let's note it in our minutes that we would, if we vote on edits as is, that we acknowledge at least that we need to make another edit very soon. We're not trying to deceive anybody. It's in the minutes before that he's not our current executive director. I just didn't make this edit for everybody's consideration, so we can't really entertain it. To my knowledge, maybe we can, but I'm not going to take the risk. I'd rather be conservative on it. So, what other observations, comments? There are some other names that were a part of our original charter that get redacted out or edited out now, too. But it accomplishes our primary purpose. We can entertain another comment, public comment.
Thank you. Victor Chu. I had a question. You guys, I heard you had 8 rooms available and you're thinking about adding 4 more. I don't know if there's capacity to get the additional 4, especially I know there have been concerns for the after school program taking up the teachers' classrooms, that they can't stay there afterwards to do the curriculum development, grading papers and things like that. So if I heard like Wonder Kids was doing well this year with their profits, if that can be used to rent out those additional rooms. So some of the teachers keep their rooms after school.
I'll try to rephrase that into a facility question. Are we creating a problem for ourselves by modifying the petition as it is and increasing daytime education by conflicting with our after school program? Not if I got it close to kind of the concern. Ethan, any thoughts on that or facility? I've considered it, and we'll give you a moment. Just we'll finish this conversation and we'll dive into another one. I don't mind. We're about to wrap up anyway after the website discussion. Anyone heard any issues with that? We know we had other issues with, the daytime program transitioning to after-school program, and we do have some classrooms that teachers are still occupying. Maybe they're grading papers after the school day. But anybody heard any other issues with this growth? With just after-school program and daytime?
I brought this up in the finance committee a few times, but a couple months ago. And so I was hoping that to hear from Cara, because I was trying to understand that after school program. She was supposed to give, she's going to work on a report about how, from her perspective of how to optimize it. This is during the time when Dr. Watson's coming as interim. So we want to put that weight on him, say, want to see something in 1 week.
Yeah.
I don't know yet, because right now, again, from the finance committee side, the numbers, pretty much what is the program offering? What are we charging for? How are we managing all this? Because there's a function per hour basis. So then I didn't understand about how the operations, which is what I understand, those same teachers in the same the classroom teachers have to literally, they exit their classroom because there's like a transition issue. Is that correct, Victor? something along that line. That I did not get into the operations itself. So I did not go further into that. Because I was trying to understand from the finance side.
Yeah, let's note it and we'll task our executive director to help us with understanding that.
But you asked a good question about the lease itself. So the lease was executed January of this year. I am unsure if IUSD will allow for modification to that lease agreement. It's again, it's a year-by-year agreement, so that's something we can follow up on to see if it can be modified to add more classrooms or not.
The way it stands, it supports what we want to do next year with this growth. So, but we'd have to go back to them for a modification if there was anything beyond that, but we're limited by physical space and what we've asked for. That gets approved. Yeah, so combination. But there's a task. I'll just take a note on that we'll task our executive director to inform us all on the harmony next year of how after school works with daytime school. Good observation, insight. Was there another comment? I know we're kind of out of sequence, but I'd rather take your comment than miss it.
I just want to comment on what you said about a classroom. We had discussion that this was that the 2 classroom will be used for the after teachers after the class end for next year. Because we're looking at the class enrollment, right, and how many classes we needed. We had discussion with the principal. It's like school site council meeting last week. So we kind of discussed, like we did have the same question, like because right now the teachers have to leave and they can't do a lot of stuff, so we did have that discussion. We did have started that discussion.
We may have to do one of those where we sharpen up and report back a little bit on that.
Does anyone bring it up to the board? That's why.
Thank you.
That's what we were planning. I think I must have missed it earlier. Supposed to be part of the report to let you guys know that what after school program.
Yeah. So on topic right now, we're just talking about the modifications, but we're noting that. Yeah. So thank you for the insight and comments. So board, any other further discussion about the modifications? The process again is I'll call for a motion to adopt the edits as they stand, noting that we do have an outstanding issue where it would be right to update on Dr. Scott's role that changed because it reflects history. This is a living document, but we know that's a change we would forecast. But as the edits stand, any further comments? We're asked for a motion to adopt these and present those forward to the Orange County Board of Education. Oh, and we also need to, we'll do the same. We'll update the names of the board members and Edward's role, temporary leave, all of that as well. So this accomplishes those 3 purposes, which are time dependent, noting that we'll do another edit next month too. Okay, then I'll make a motion that we adopt the edits as they exist right now with the notes that we forecast in the minutes. Second, please. Miller has second. Let's do a roll call vote. And let's go from the end over there. Miller?
Yes.
Ethan? Brett?
Aye.
And Doug is yes, and then Glenn?
Aye.
Okay, and then we'll note that make those material revisions. Last item on discussion and action is approving funds to update the website. I want to invite some public comments in a moment if there are some. Might be helpful to put it in context. Edward and Brett, you both been working with some parents on this. Would you like to do the kind of scope of what we're talking about and the focus?
Yes.
And then we'll invite public comments. Tell them what it's about.
Yeah, so for the website, we've heard your concerns. We all have heard the same concerns. Website needs to be improved. So actually, I will defer to Brett Freeman for some of it because he has done a lot of work. Board member, board trustee Freeman has done a lot of work for this. And it's something that we are looking into. I don't know how much, so I'll defer to you how much you want to say about it, but I think it's something that's going to happen sooner than later, to have a completely updated website.
Okay, so everyone has context before we invite comments.
When?
Well, let me just frame that up. All I want to know is three things: scope, what are we going to do? Schedule, how soon is it going to happen? And budget. If you give us that overview before discussion, let's invite public comments because they don't have a concept of what we're about to talk about. They don't know if what we're going to talk about is $1 million or $1. So if you give a scope, schedule, budget, then I want to invite comments so they're informed of it.
Sure. So the scope is basically a new website. There are portions of our existing website that can be ported over, but given the platform that it's currently on, some of the verbiage will be used and transported over to the new site, but we're talking about a new website. The time frame is probably 8 to 10 weeks. That will vary. Much of it will be dependent on the content. Some of it, as I mentioned, will be transported over from the existing site, but some of it will need to be created by us. We've been looking at a few different options for platforms. The budget, based on proposals, has ranged from $5,000, $6,000 all the way up to $30,000. We've received over 5 proposals. We are looking at the $5,000 to $10,000 range in terms of the proposals that we're serious about. And what we're really looking for tonight is the approval of the board to secure the funds to be able to support the website and really to move forward with making some decisions, which will likely impact our budget maybe this year, next year. Certainly, we're looking at options that would require ongoing service fees to support it. So some of the proposals are, we build the site for you. It has this type of capability, and then you would run it. IIA, if you need help, we could do some supporting help along the way, but it's your site. On the other side, we've been looking at some service providers that provide a platform, and they support many different schools and have templates. And some of those templates have great integration with, let's say, Google Classroom and some of the other websites that was mentioned earlier about Clever and being able to integrate with some of the different websites that the school is currently using. So the idea would be able to integrate that into the website and have something that's very much a two-way communication resource versus just a one-way read pages and move on. This is really a way for existing parents as well as new parents to be able to engage.
That's good scope. That's good overview. I want to invite public comments. You want to add something?
Just wanted
Dr. Watson?
to give a big thanks again to Board Trustee Freeman, because the website is something that is the first point of contact for many parents looking at our school. And it's something that we want to make sure is very appealing to people. So I'm glad that he's doing all this work to try and make that happen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dr. Watson. I'd also like to thank you, Dr. Scott, Principal Chuang, Sai. We've had a few parents, Charlton and Ruth, who've been involved. And others are welcome to join, but we're getting pretty close to making some decisions with respect to the vendors. But this is really ongoing work. So as Dr. Watson mentioned, for many parents, this will be the first introduction to our school. So we want to make sure it shows well, but we want something to be very interactive, user-friendly. We'd like the teachers to have an opportunity to communicate what they're doing and have a way to engage. We're also looking at the option to even have an app on a phone where you can get communication. So we're looking at really exciting things. It's light years ahead of where we're at right now. It's very positive.
No, thank you. I think we have a picture now in our mind. Any comments from public on the website? Feel free. Thank you.
Remember, we planning to add also the student or the parents, kind of like for them to enter information, like now, using the various, like just for them to enter like open enrollment or check the status of students, and also like the communication teachers and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a few different, let's say, phases. And really the first phase is get something up that is going to be a good replacement for what we have now. And some of that will include already some updates, access to the calendars, we're looking at a platform that will include communication, broadcasting communication. So parents will receive real-time information, let's say via SMS text, through call, through email, rather than just one channel or avenue that we have now, which is Class Dojo or email and maybe delayed. We'll also be able to transmit newsletters real time to parent base. So some of the functionality will tie into some back-end services. We really be excited if in further phases, let's say phase 2, where we actually had a parent portal where parents could log in and get more information about what's going on with their particular child or students at the school. And some of that will require some additional funding and resources and some other services, some of which will be based on what we have now, but some of it will need to be sort of added on as we get more advanced with it. So there's certainly great functionality that we can add to it, but we're even looking at things right now as to if you want to report an absence. I don't know if anyone knows really the best way to do that. If your child can't go that day, is it through Dojo, or you just gonna send an email, or you just don't show up? But maybe having a form on the website that you can just report an absence and communicate that way. We're also looking to integrate with the PTO. We have some modules that can do that, and we can see where we can team up with the PTO to have a more seamless and integrated experience between IIA and IIA PTO.
Yeah, we have time for another comment if you had one. If not, it's okay. That's great. Any others from public? We'll get just a little board discussion and we'll get a motion. But I think there's probably a little discussion here. Anyone else? Board members, thoughts, clarification, questions, and then what I'll ask for, Brett, is if you can quantify what we're approving for this budget year. I'm not so concerned about next year, although we can talk about it, but we can only approve this budget year anyway. And it's just a shift of current funds. We're not, adding new funds. So I would say 10,000. I would say if we could get approval for 10,000. The reason I can't give you a definitive number is because I'm negotiating right now. So I'm hoping to get the go-ahead to proceed. What we would be looking at is something that would be a first year fee, and then there could be recurring fees as well for each following year based on the platform that we're looking at.
Yeah, we have.
So we expend funds in this category already through an ad hoc agreement. As we need work and services done, we pay for them. And so certainly we have a budget code for website support and development. But what you're saying is we need a block of money for the redevelopment of the site this year. And we should anticipate next year an ongoing support fee, because if we want to call somebody to do structural changes, as opposed to what we'll be able to do now, once this new site's up, we can do a lot of our own changes. Right now, we can't do any of our own changes. It literally takes a web developer to change something. It's 10-year-old technology. It's ridiculous. So $10,000 with the vendors. Have you compared vendors then and done our due diligence on competitive proposals?
Yeah, so we've received over 5 proposals. The key for us is really finding vendors that have experience with charter schools. So schools would be great, charter schools even better, to see how we can provide flexibility to our websites. So to give you an example, you mentioned the difficulties that we have with our current website. This is something that our team could actually access, create pages, insert images, videos, and things like that. And that's the idea with any of these vendors that we're working with. The flexibility is key for us, and to be able to put things up if we need to put up communications, and to have an effective way to communicate with our parents, and to have our parents engage with our website like we engage with our board meetings, to be able to use it both for prospective parents as well as those that are.
So Mike, first of all, We do have 10,000. But you know, when I'm thinking about the line of expenses, like requested compensation increase for teacher aides. You know, this, you know, there was hope that, you know, there'll be more volunteers to take up this very commoditized problem issue. But nevertheless, you know, we do have to make a commitment investment. Really, this is website is the clear portal communication. We have been admonished, you know, by multiple stakeholders. I think we just need to get this thing up. I do want to appreciate taking on this momentous task because it's to develop different phases, different modules, take into consideration, listen to different stakeholders, and get it done expeditiously. It's important as we prepare, have this a version 2 website, secondary school. So that's a big, and I know you couldn't grant it now. That's how I know that. Price.
Then I believe what your motion is to provide the funds necessary to update the website up to $10,000, by the way, which is our level of materiality that exists for our executive director to do without board approval, pre-approval. So I'll make that motion that we approve that committee to choose the vendor, and in this fiscal year, expand up to $10,000 for the redevelopment of the website. And second? I think that Glenn will give Glenn a second. Let's do a roll call vote. Miller?
Yes.
Ethan? Brett?
Aye.
And I'm a yes. Yes. And it's much needed. Thank you. Finally, then, board recommendations or comments for our executive director. I'd like to begin. Edward, thank you for being a bit of a healer, peacemaker, but also then pouring in the extra hours. I know you're wrapping up your professorial duties, and yet when I look at the timestamp on your emails and communications, I know you're going way beyond, so thank you.
My thing is just to follow up on the committees, as I mentioned earlier, you know, as some talked about prior executive director about, given that this is a new turning over a new leaf, I would like to see more formal committees made. And then at the same time, the process to solicit the board members to chair it, and then solicit parents or people in the community. You know, I want to come back, it ties a little bit back to the board meeting, you know, really you touched something that I thought was really important. Again, my children do not go to school. Living their life on any person. That's about to care about the charter. That's what's really important. It's really great to have parents who are also active. As we can all understand, many charter schools do not have a type of profile of parents. Therefore, there's no participation. I was talking about the charter where they cannot get a parent to attend at all, to even help out. I said, you gotta be kidding. At least somebody is an attorney or somebody, no involvement whatsoever. It's great to see that parents want to get involved, and those who maybe they're not, at least finding, you know, citizens who actually care and want to really care at the charter of IIA. But really, I do, you know, will be sending some recommendations for committees, so it helps strengthen, really build a roots to this school.
I do have a recommendation. We had a chance to speak earlier. So thank you for getting the Chromebooks out there.
Yes.
My understanding is all of the kids have Chromebooks in the classroom. I think it's important that we get the technology use policy signed by all the parents. I believe there is a employee version as well of the technology use policy. I know we voted on that in the past. So we get those implemented, please.
And then I mentioned there the bumper sleeves, the student sleeves.
Yes.
I forget the number of the
Bumps.
to protect the Chromebooks.
Yeah.
That those get deployed too, and hopefully we have all of the documents signed before we're releasing Chromebooks to the wild, to be removed from the school. And I hope that we can have a policy on what that is. When they'll be, if the Chromebooks leave, when they'll be returned. So it's very clear
Yes.
what our policy is related to those very valuable pieces of equipment. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I walk around the campus today, coming in as a parents, look around, and I really kind of commend you. That, at a time like this, you jump in and then swap your way. So I see the skill, I see the calmness. So continue outstanding performance. Thank you.
Well, with that, then I'll invite a motion for adjournment. Okay, well, a motion, second. Ethan second. Roll call vote, starting with Glenn. And Doug is a yes. Correct? Aye. And Ethan? Aye. And Hillary is a yes. That concludes our meeting. I want to again thank all parents especially and public for participating. Mary Beth, thank you for your coordination. And you can end the recording if you're ready.